Missouri Farm Bureau Insurance isn't just for us farmers. They have all of Missouri covered. Mike Boddicker here, and if you want a good team protecting everything important in your life, you should talk with a Missouri Farm Bureau Insurance agent in your area today.
Welcome back to the show. This is the Border Patrol on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Stephen St. John and Nate Bucati with Jake Gutierrez. I'm up at the Stony Creek Hotel and Conference Center, my headquarters, as I cover Chiefs practice all week long. Jeff Chadiha is on the phone. Where in the NFL is Jeff Chadiha? Jeff, where are you?
I'm at the Washington football team training camp in Ashburn, Virginia, where they got some Rick James and Tina Marie playing as they stretch.
Hey,
you dig that? Some square biz. Talking square biz to you guys.
Where? What other camps have you already visited?
I've been at the Ravens the previous 2 days. I've been here. It's my second day here, and then obviously I was in Kansas City for Friday and Saturday. So I think this is my sixth straight day training camp. So I'm going to Broncos and Vikings next week.
Okay, well let's start with the Ravens. They added Justin Houston, but what's the buzz? What's the situation around Lamar Jackson at Ravens camp?
Well, he obviously had that positive COVID test and has not been at practice. He'll be back either tomorrow or Saturday, what John Harbaugh had said. And look, they're not happy about it. I mean, there's a lot of frustration because it's the second time he's been on the COVID list. And you go back to what happened with that video coming out on social media, him playing basketball with some kids down in Miami. I think there's some people who are a little disappointed right now in the way his poor season is starting, just as far as the maturity he's been showing. And then he's not a big vaccination guy. And so that's also something that they're a little bit concerned about here. You know, off the record, they would tell you that, you know, like they want him to be better about this stuff and be vaccinated, but they also know that everybody's got their reasons for not wanting to do this, and they're hoping that they can get this thing going. Like John Harbaugh told me, he said, look, man, it's like we're trying to get this improved, and we got some new additions, and this train's going to be rolling. So once he gets back, he's going to have to be able to jump on it while it's going full speed.
Well, and look, we've played some clips in the past from Mike Zimmer. It looks like he's about ready to jump into a river because he's so frustrated with his team, and you know, with 3 quarterbacks unavailable, and I think they have the lowest percentage of players that are vaccinated in the NFL. Whereas here in Kansas City, it's really a non-story because I think they've been above 95%. Patrick Mahomes, he's been, you know, they've asked him about it. He's like, I got vaccinated. I think it's what I need to do. And as a leader of the team and as a quarterback of the team, that's what you want. And you don't have that drama. You don't have that. It's not a topic of conversation really in Chiefs camp. And it is with the Ravens. It is with the Vikings. And the way the NFL has set this up, I mean, it's a competitive advantage if your team is doing the right thing versus Lamar Jackson not available, Kirk Cousins not available. You've been around Ravens camp. You've been around Washington, Kansas City. What are your thoughts on how the different teams are handling this?
Well, I think every team is trying to do the best they can with it, and the numbers are going up. I think that what you're seeing is as more guys are in camp and they're getting more information coming from the teams who are bringing a lot of medical people who are reliable and credible. It probably helps to get information from those people as opposed to being back wherever you grew up or where you went to school and you're around social media. Whoever's around you is giving you information and you're getting it from dubious sources. But, you know, it's a work in progress. You know, I would probably bet you that a lot of the guys who aren't vaccinated are coming from states where you see a lot more issues around vaccination. Florida's been a state that's notoriously been very political about this topic, and Lamar Jackson's from Florida. You know, so you've got a situation there where when he's probably home, he's probably getting a lot of that bad info. And it is a competitive advantage. I imagine it'll probably balance out, and I know the football team, I must call them the Redskins, their numbers have gone up since Ron Rivera was very openly critical, like Mike Zimmer was, about guys getting vaccinated. So I think they're up in the 70% range now to be in the 50% range when training camp started. but it's going to be an issue. And to be honest with you, for teams Chiefs who are in a better place, it's still scary for them because you could end up playing a team that's got may have to cancel a game and you lose a game because of it and lose a paycheck.
So it's also there's that locker room dynamic too, right, Jeff? You talk about that part of the game a lot in terms of how players respect one another, and what kind of pressure do they have. And it's also different when it's the quarterback. Like, you're talking about if a team is frustrated in Minnesota with their starting quarterback, or in Baltimore particularly with their starting quarterback there, I guess from two angles, how much do you think it really matters for the Ravens to, first of all, just the practicality of missing Lamar Jackson in practice at the start of camp? And also, what do you think it does to the locker room dynamic there?
Well, they got a pretty good culture and a lot of leaders in there, so I know that there's probably a lot of respect for him, even though, that he's not there. That's an issue. I think they respect him as a person, as a friend, as a teammate. But, yeah, it's going to, affect you on the field during practice. They've got a lot of young receivers here. With Rashad Bateman, came in his first-round pick. Tylan Wallace, the kid from Oklahoma State, came here in the draft. Marquise Brown, his first-round pick a couple of years ago. Sammy Watkins came over. And so when they're catching passes from second-string quarterback, a guy like Trace McSorley, it's good for McSorley to get reps, but they want that chemistry to be as tight as it can be once they start playing real games. And so, yeah, it is. There is a frustration there, and I'm sure within the locker room, we don't get to talk to guys and be in the locker room like we did back in the days. But I'm sure that as they get closer to the season and they get deeper into it, if this happens again, it can really blow up a team.
We have Jeff Chadiha from NFL Network and NFL.com in studio. All right, Jeff, you said that you spent a couple of days at Chiefs camp right before I got up here. That seems odd that you would leave the day before I get here. I won't take that personally, but I'm up here all week. What were your takeaways from your 2 days up here at Chiefs camp?
The thing that jumped out at me, and maybe it's just because there aren't as many fans as there were before, but it felt like 2 years ago when they were up there, it was more rah-rah. I don't want to say it was jovial or collegial, but it was more playing to the crowd and more having fun. And I think now it felt more business-like. It felt more like they got to get stuff done, get work in. I'm sure they're still having fun. That's their personality. But it felt like 2 years ago they were really trying to prove themselves, and they were ramped up to try to win a championship and show the world what they could be. And now there's more of a maturity there as a group, as a culture. And so it just felt like there was more of that. So as I watched them work out, it just seemed like that was the overriding takeaway. This team, after winning one championship and losing in Super Bowl last year, is more dialed in about what they got to do to be right to go after this a third time.
By far the biggest change for the Chiefs on their roster, Jeff, is on the offensive line. And we've talked a lot with you about what we can expect from this O-line. And we saw, at least at times so far, 3 first-year players starting on the offensive line. And, of course, Orlando Brown Jr. and Tooney are brand new to the team as well on the left side of that offensive line. I know that they didn't have the pads on yet, how much you can make of it, but any new thoughts on what you expect from this offensive line going into the season?
Well, having the pads on will tell a lot. Right? It's hard to judge linemen without having them geared up and ready to go and hitting each other. So, but I think it's encouraging that they feel that good about those 3 young players, especially. You want to be able to, as this team evolves, you want to be able to have younger guys around Patrick Mahomes so they can grow together and so they can be cost effective. And so, like I've said before, there's still a lot of questions about them because none of these guys, aside from Tooney and Orlando Brown, have played in the NFL. And Orlando Brown's only played probably 250 snaps, or 250 pass attempts as a left tackle in the NFL. And so you want to see how they come together. I think chemistry is always an underrated aspect of offensive line play. I'm sure Tim Grunhard would tell you the same thing. That is, it's great to have big names and guys who've been around, but even better to have guys who know each other and know what to expect and know how to communicate. Because I always go back to what Ozzie Newsome, the Ravens old GM, told me a long time ago, was that most sacks occur communication, not because you've got Lawrence Taylor on the other side. So we'll see. We'll see. I know talking to people in Baltimore, you know, they echoed what I was saying earlier about Orlando Brown Jr., that they love him as a guy, and you know, they love the way he played for the Ravens, but they also feel like they want to wait and see what happens to him at left tackle over in Kansas City.
Jeff Chadiha from NFL Network and NFL.com is our guest. All right, Jeff, I know you spent some time in Ravens camp, and I saw that you wrote about Sammy Watkins, former Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver. That's one of the storylines at camp here in Kansas City. You know, McCole Hardman's the next guy up, but is he going to be able to fill those shoes? And, you know, guys got like Demarcus Robinson and Byron Pringle and Cornell Powell they're battling for the opportunity to get some more targets from Patrick Mahomes. But there's a certain quote that I wanted to ask you about, Jeff. In Kansas City, I looked at it like, I'll play my role. Let me open Tyreek Hill up. Let me open Travis Kelce up. Now it's like, I'm not worried about getting somebody else open. I'm thinking, I'm going to beat this dude and get the ball. And so I retweeted that. And boy, did I have fun reading the mentions and replies and Ravens and Chiefs fans arguing. Some people took it like, well, boy, isn't he kind of insulting the other receivers there in Baltimore, basically saying, hey, Kansas City, they're way better, and I was just a decoy there, but I can be the guy here. Was he making excuses about why he wasn't more productive in Kansas City? Basically, it depends on what team you root for, and that's how you viewed those comments. You tell me, what was your reaction to hearing Sammy Watkins say that?
Oh, I think he was just being honest. I think and that was all within the context of, I think what we were talking about was that being in Kansas City, like Andy Reid was always saying that the offense is better when Sammy Watkins is involved, and that he was kind of their post player and a guy who did some of the dirty work as a receiver. And how is he going to impart that same message to young receivers in Baltimore, where you're not going to be throwing the ball 50 times a game, and you're going to have some games where you might see 25 pass attempts, 20 pass attempts. And so he was talking about just the importance of that group, learning how to share the ball, learning how to make the most situations and take advantage of the opportunities that do come their way, and playing together and not having egos. And I think we got on that topic just because Greg Roman had said he had a role in Kansas City, but the role he's going to have in Baltimore is going to be defined by what he does or what he wants to do. So he was saying, yeah, I'm going to do more, run more long routes, do more stuff underneath. I'm going to have a heavier more opportunities to do stuff. And he said in Kansas City, when he went there, he felt like this is Tyreek's team, this is Kelce's team. I'm not going to try to make waves. I'll play my role. But he felt like he's trying to show these young guys how you need to attack being a receiver in this league or being a receiver in this offense. It was. I didn't take it as a sign of disrespect. I take it as a sign he was saying that's what I had to do in Kansas City. That's what we had to do to win games. And it was great. He said, like he said, when you win games, you don't care about how many balls you catch. And so he was basically making that point that this is more about how you win as a team and how you accept your role as opposed to, hey, I got to have my balls. I got to have the ball in my hands all the time.
How much do you think they're actually going to count on him? Because obviously one of the big issues is staying on the field for Sammy. And you mentioned some of the other young receivers they have in Baltimore. How many eggs are they putting in the Sammy Watkins basket?
A lot. Like trying to make an omelet. Frittata, trying to a lot of eggs in that basket, you know what I'm saying? Trying to, make some French toast out of it and everything else. They definitely have high expectations for him. For the reason I just said, that he's been on a championship team. He's proven that he's willing to play his part and help other guys grow and learn. He's the oldest guy in that receivers room, as he was when he came to Kansas City. People forget that he's older than Tyreek Hill sometimes. And I think that the way he plays, the things that he does, I think in years past, they've had a lot of success with the first year they had this offense. They were relying a lot on Mark Andrews and Hayden Hurst and that 3 tight end look and guys working underneath to help Lamar function as a passer. And so, yeah, he can do a lot of that stuff. And if you watched him in training camp, you saw him doing a lot of that underneath stuff. He went deep and made plays down the field, too. But I think he can do both. And he can also block in the run game. He's willing to do that. So I think just being a leader and being available is a big thing. And I asked him about that because, it was a big issue in Kansas City about staying healthy. And he just, kind of gave me the, hey, everything happens for a reason type deal. But he also said, the way he's training and the way he's being coached, he's with Greg Roman, who he had in Buffalo, the offensive coordinator here, and T. Martin's the receivers coach, and Keith Williams is the pass game specialist, and all these guys have worked with him at different points in his career, whether in the off season or on his own. So I think he feels comfortable.
So let's go down this road again. We saw the Steelers late in the offseason add Melvin Ingram, and now the Ravens add Justin Houston. So who do you have winning that division, the Browns, the Steelers, or the Ravens?
I'm still on the Browns. They are my 49ers of a couple years ago. And maybe that's maybe that's a little overstating it because the 49ers went from being a 6-win team to being a Super Bowl win team. The Browns were in the playoffs last year, but I just feel like right now they have the fewest issues, the fewest question marks. They've added a lot of players on defense, so you want to see how these young guys perform. But when you look at overall, I think this time of year I look more at just overall depth of talent than just who's got the big name quarterback or who's got the best pedigree. When you look at the Ravens, they have tons of talent. They're super deep. But when you look at what the Browns have, they're probably top 3 in the NFL in terms of overall talent. And you're bringing back Odell Beckham Jr. But I feel like they've got a very smart general manager in Andrew Berry, a smart head coach in Kevin Stefanski, a quarterback in Baker Mayfield who's turned a critical corner into his career and understands what he has to do. Someone in that organization told me during the offseason that he's realized that he's going to have to be a star 90% of the time, like Patrick Mahomes does for the Chiefs to win games. If he does it 40% of the time, they can still win games there with the running game and with the offensive line, the tight ends, the defense. So I just feel like they are primed to have a really big year.
I love the fact that when Steven asked you about who's going to win the division, we didn't even throw the Bengals out there. Like they're not even in the conversation. But I'm actually
are they in the NFL still?
Yeah, I think.
Should they be in that conversation?
No, that's. I don't think any of us were like, hey, wait a second, what about the Bengals? But I actually do kind of wonder if the Bengals might not be able to jump up and bite a couple teams through the course of the season. I'm not saying to contend, but can Burrow take a step forward with the weapons that he has? I've read a lot about the work he's done in the offseason trying to get back healthy. Do you think the Bengals can at least cause any problems for teams in that division this year?
Well, I think any team can jump up and bite you. I mean, you saw that with the Chiefs last year when they were playing the Falcons late in the season, and that was a team that was going nowhere, and they almost won that game. So, yeah, every team in the NFL has that potential, but their talent level is so low right now, and they're trying to, get back to the days when Marvin Lewis was there, where they actually had a little bit of a winning culture going on. From what I've been told, just talking to people around the league, it sounds like Burrow is still mentally trying to get through that knee injury, coming back from that. They obviously had a huge offensive line problems there, and so he got hurt pretty late in the year. So it's still not clear where he's at as far as being comfortable playing on a bad team with a shaky offensive line with a rebuilt knee. And when you look at quarterbacks who've had to deal with that, like a Carson Wentz more recently comes to mind, it's like you see what the numbers can be. Guys get shaky. They tend to become a little less accurate. And so I want to see how he starts off and where he's at. But, look, the reason the Bengals didn't come up in my mind as far as, look, they're not a contender in that division, but you look at the AFC overall, pretty much every division has got at least 2, maybe 3 teams where you're like, man, if things break right and this team really hits their stride and reaches their potential, they could be dangerous. And so I've never seen the AFC be this this loaded maybe in my whole career. I mean, there's at least 10 teams where you're like, man, all these teams could be 11-win teams, 11, 12-win teams if things break right.
Jeff Chudilla from NFL Network is our guest. Right before we break, and then I'm going to head over to camp, and then we'll do another segment with you with Nate. Let's have a little bit of fun. Okay. Let's have some fun here. First, so have you ever had a standalone mustache, Jeff Chudilla?
Oh yeah. When I was all through high school, man, I looked like Eddie Murphy. See,
that's what you're a mustache. Okay, let's listen. Harold Kuntz and I were talking to Travis Kelce, and look, the Chiefs are a mustache team simply because of Andy Reid, but they had Mustache Monday, and so Travis Kelce, a bunch of other players have a mustache, and I like it. It makes me feel like I'm watching a team from the 80s. Let's hear Travis Kelce talking about his mustache yesterday.
I mean, Mustache Mondays, baby. I'm just, we started it up. I shot a text to a few guys, told Dieter, we were doing it. Dieter got on board. He made sure he let everybody know. We talked to the O-line, got a few guys on the line to jump in with us. We even got Andy Reid to jump in with us, and it was we kind of didn't give him an ultimatum. He usually doesn't jump in on things like that, but this time Mustache Mondays is all about him. I think Coach Reid takes it, man. He's had that thing sitting there for about a good 40 years now. I don't even know how long. I got to ask him, when's the last time he shaved that sucker? The only picture I can find is him at BYU without one. And there he kind of looks like Chris Farley, R.I.P.
Yeah, you're a fashion icon in Kansas City, so a lot of guys will start with a standalone mustache, and maybe some girls too. I don't know, but
who knows?
Will this make it out of training camp? Is this just for training camp, or is this going to make it to the regular season?
That's a good question, man. I got to ask Kayla. I got to ask my lady. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what she says. She did. She's not a fan of it right now, but sometimes not everybody likes something new. You got to get used to it. So we'll see. I'll probably stick it out another week. I don't know. We'll see.
And so, of course, the takeaway there is he said that Andy Reid, with a young Andy Reid at BYU with no mustache, looked like Chris Farley, R.I.P. And so I don't know. I can't even imagine Andy Reid without a mustache. Jeff Chudilla, any chance that you will bring back your standalone mustache that you had in high school?
Well, as Kelce referenced his lady, my girlfriend, trust me, if I start growing a mustache, she's going to start growing looking for some options outside of the house to. She ain't sleeping with no mustache. Just, my sex life would go downhill in a hurry. So I never tell you the story about Mike Holmgren talking to Andy Reid. I was talking to Mike Holmgren last year about Andy, and Andy's asking him for advice about, or whether Andy came to him for advice on how to repeat, what it takes to repeat. And Mike was just like, oh, man, he never really talked about that. He said, but one thing I did give him as far as advice, I said, man, shave that mustache because you need to trim it up. It's been way too long since you took care of that thing. So everybody notices that mustache.
That's right. All right, so, okay, on to the next topic before we break. Jeff, are you a coffee guy?
I am not. I do not drink coffee. Don't like the taste of it. You don't like the taste of it. You don't need, like, Jake. We've already talked. Jake and Nate are dependent on coffee. I just started drinking coffee a couple of years ago. I could have a cup but it doesn't bother me either way. It helps, but I'm not in love with coffee. Now, I know you are an unbiased reporter in the NFL. You cover the NFL, but deep in your heart still remains the Detroit Lions. And I want to ask you to listen to this clip, if you're the Lions head coach, Dan Campbell, and tell me if this is what you like to hear. He wants to be ready, and he wants to be alert and sharp every day when he leads this team, hopefully, out of the doldrums and into the playoffs. This is what Dan Campbell does before every practice to start his day right.
Well, normally what I do is I'll get 2 venti. I go to Starbucks. I get 2 venti of the pipe with 2 shots in them. So black eye in both. That's what I come in with. That's how I start the day. So.
Now, does that make you feel better that the Lions are in the capable and very alert hands of Dan Campbell with taking a couple of venti coffees along with a total of 4 shots of espresso just to get his day started right?
You know, it's funny because the sound may not be that great on my end of it, but I heard the venti part, but it sounded like he said I'd get 2 ventis and I hit the pipe. That's what I thought.
2 ventis of pipe.
I've been in Detroit too long.
Pipe roast.
Hey.
Okay. But
I don't know. That would make him alert, too. I don't know if the right
yeah, that sounds like a Lions coach already to me. If I can do to get through this season, I'll do it.
Jake, explain to him what is ritual. Explain to Jeff. So clear that up for Jeff. What Dan Campbell does in the morning.
Pike is a medium. It's a medium bean. It's a blend, a coffee roast that Starbucks. It's their main. Like Nate said, they were founded on Pike Street, right? Nate?
Pike's Market in Seattle is where the first Starbucks is.
And he adds 4 shots of espresso in there because the coffee's not enough. So a little extra.
You got to be fired up to do that job. Huh? Yeah, I totally get it. Look, I mean, it's like we're going to have a lot of fun with the Lions over the next 2 years, however long Dan Campbell's the coach there. But when that's the big takeaway coming out of the Lions game, it tells you what kind of year they're about to have. We're talking about coffee this early. No players, just coffee.
He has 2 venti cups of coffee. That's how many years Jeff Chadea has given him on the job.
Right.
2 years in Detroit. Is that what you said?
Hey, Jeff. Hey, Jeff, I'm gonna head over to practice. Nate will take it from here. We'll take a break and do another segment. Jeff, thanks for the time. Good talking to you. But hang with us, and Nate will have more questions coming up. That is Jeff Chadea from NFL Network and NFL.com. We'll be right back after this on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I've always said Jeff Chadea is the Axel Foley of this show. And I'm picturing Jeff Chadea rocking that mustache back in the day. We got one more segment with our man who covers the NFL like no one else. You want to talk some quarterback storylines, Jeff, real quick? We got them all over the league. Jeff, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Bo. I'm here.
Okay,
Sorry
all right.
about that. Hit the mute button. My face got too close to the phone.
There you go. No worries.
Mustache in it.
Hey, all right, let's go into this quarterback situation. Now, first of all, there's reports coming out this morning that the Philadelphia Eagles are interested in Deshaun Watson and that they might be trying to make a trade for him. The potential legal issues that Deshaun Watson could be facing might be a sticking point there. Do you see any potential there? You think there's a chance that the Eagles could land Deshaun Watson this season or before the season starts even?
Oh, certainly. I mean, Deshaun Watson, probably Aaron Rodgers created a lot of cover for a lot of different storylines over the offseason because he was the dominant storyline. But Deshaun Watson is the top 5 quarterback in the NFL and a player who will instantly change a team's fortunes. And if not for this whole thing with these women down in Houston, or these civil cases, he would be traded by now. Somebody would have given up a king's ransom to get him. And so I think the Eagles being smart figure out a way to make it work. I know that, and I've said this before, you don't want to disrespect or minimize these charges because they're serious, or these civil suits because they're serious, but no police charges have been filed yet. The NFL really hasn't had much opportunity to really get an investigation going with the women involved. And so those kind of things start happening. It does make you wonder what's really happening here with this situation. Is this a smear campaign, or is there legitimate stuff going on here? Is there a mix of both? And so I think all teams are trying to figure out and do their due diligence and figure out what's exactly happening. But when it comes down to Deshaun Watson, the value he has on the field, I think that will always be something that any team is going to want in the NFL who doesn't have a Patrick Mahomes or a Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers sitting in their locker room.
So I find the way the Texans are handling Deshaun Watson pretty interesting because you just mentioned the Aaron Rodgers cover that he's provided for everybody. To Jake's credit, he said the Packers all along were going to call Aaron Rodgers bluff. And they did, and he's there. And they're going to try to make this thing work at least for another year. We'll see how it plays out. But they called his bluff, and he basically said, okay, I was bluffing. I'm here. And he's going to play. The Texans, on the other hand, Deshaun Watson shows up for camp so he doesn't get fined. and they put him on the practice squad basically, like he's running with the backups. And I've heard some people suggest, why wouldn't they just do the same thing? Okay, you want to be traded, good for you, man, but you're on the roster and you're here in camp, so you're the starting quarterback. Here you go. Are you surprised at all the way the Texans have handled him, or do you think they're going about it the right way?
Well, I think he's been hurt the last couple of days, too, if I remember correctly. I believe he had some kind of, they were looking at his foot or his ankle, and he was in practice. I know yesterday he wasn't in practice. The day before, I think is when it happened. But you do begin to wonder on that side of it, is our phantom injury starting to pop up? Is this what's going to end up happening?
Yeah.
With this team and this player, whereas we're going to play this game of, okay, we're going to put you on practice squad. He's going to play the game of, well, I'm kind of banged up. I need to take a break today. And just, that's the problem you have with all this stuff. And even with the Aaron Rodgers situation, I still wonder, I still don't believe that's going to be a smooth sail for that team this year with everything that's gone down in the offseason. I think with Deshaun Watson, if you're the Houston Texans, at what point is it worth it for you to keep playing these games or to have this kind of dysfunction in your organization? At some point, you have to start trying to be a successful football team again. And so if they can't find a way to get the same pay for Deshaun Watson, it's probably better for them to be someplace else.
So the Eagles, we'll see where it goes there. And like you said, it complicates the whole matter, them trying to trade him, what's going on with those civil suits. The Eagles clearly are out there shopping a little bit right now. And there's also been the talk of, would there be a fit for former Eagles quarterback Nick Foles, maybe with Indianapolis, considering all the things that are happening with the Colts right now? What do you make of the Colts situation with Ertz, and do you think that would make any sense for Nick Foles to end up back there with some guys he knows pretty well?
Well, it's either Nick Foles or it's going to be Phillip Rivers coming back, and I imagine that Foles makes better sense if you have a guy who's been in your system, who's been around Carson Wentz, who knows they know each other, they're friends. They've gone through a lot of seasons together in Philadelphia, and Frank Reich knows him as well. So to me, it makes all the sense in the world that you start looking down that road. And I feel bad for the Colts because I can't imagine a team that's been more snake bit in the last start training camp in the last 5-10 years. To have your starting quarterback and your best player, Quentin Nelson, go down with the same injury is jaw-dropping. But, yeah, I think that they would have to start looking at that, especially when you're talking about having the surgery. I know that there was some discussion about whether they would let him rest and recover and rehab that foot. But once you go down that road with the surgery and you're talking about 5 to 12 weeks, you might not see him again until October. And so likely you won't see him again until October. So you need to have somebody you trust back there to make some plays for you.
Yeah, it's like the Colts and the Chargers, man. It's like it just seems like every year they get hammered by injuries when you think they've put together a pretty good roster.
Yeah, exactly. As soon as I made that comment, I was thinking they remind me of the Chargers when it comes to that. And I still have to think that they've got a pretty good roster down there, and if they get a quarterback in there who can win games, look, when they had Jacoby Brissett playing, they were able to get some things done with him in an emergency situation when Andrew Luck. So they've been down this road before of having to figure things out in a hurry with the player in the center. But yeah, it is mind blowing that some teams go through this and other teams never really face it.
We're visiting with Jeff Chadiha. We've got some rookie quarterbacks to watch as well, and they're all going to be compelling, I think. But Trevor Lawrence is the number one guy that I think that has the highest expectations, at least coming in. And there's some buzz coming out of the Jags camp that he's looking great. He's turning heads down there, but supposedly it's a quarterback competition. What are you hearing about how he looks so far, and what are your expectations of him this season?
Well, I don't mean to rain on anybody's parade, but I always try to temper my expectations at this time of year when you start hearing people say, so-and-so looks amazing, you can't believe what he's doing. And if you come out and you watch these teams, whether it's in Kansas City or in Washington where I'm at or Jacksonville, like everybody's going to look pretty good, because it's all scripted. It's, they're going against each other. They're not seeing anything other than what they've already been practicing against. I think Trevor Lawrence does have a bright future in the NFL, but I also wonder about how Urban Meyer is going to work out. Some of the offensive moves he's made already have been a little bit head scratching, and it's that team like the Bengals doesn't have a whole bunch of talent, and so I'm curious to see how he plays and what he's able to accomplish in his first year. But I'm certainly not expecting him to come out and set the world on fire. Like I think it'll be a rough road for him the first year, and then we'll see what happens in the second, third year.
So speaking of Urban Meyer, have you seen this story about how he's using this winner-loser drill that he says is going to determine some of the cuts, where he lines up guys one-on-one against one another, and then they broadcast it over the loudspeaker which guy won the matchup on that particular play, and then they're going to do a series? Have you seen this story, and what do you think of it?
I have not heard it, but it sounds like something a college coach would do, and that's my big question about Urban Meyer in the NFL is how long will some of this stuff play with the people who are in the NFL? Because guys, they want to come out and put their work in, and they want to prove themselves. And I understand if you want to create a competitive environment, you want to ratchet up the intensity and make guys a little nervous about their futures and all that stuff, but end of the day, like most of these teams, people know who's going to make it. I think it's, I have a lot of questions about what he's going to be able to do and how fast he's going to be able to do it. Just because when you come in from college, you haven't had any NFL experience. Like Matt Rule in Carolina, he was an NFL coach. Pete Carroll in Seattle, he'd been in the NFL twice before he came back from the USC. There just aren't a lot of guys can come in now and really take control of a team and a locker room and get guys to buy in. That's the thing. It's like you have to have guys buy in. And if you don't get that, then it doesn't matter what drill you're doing or who's the winner or loser. It comes down to whether guys believe you can actually lead them to victories.
Your answer, that sounds like something a college guy would do. I feel like that's exactly what some of the guys in the locker room would be saying, too.
Yep. Man, what is this? Exactly. What are we doing here? Like, it's hot out here. I'm trying to, this team has sucked for the last 5 years, whatever it's been. It's like, is this what we're going to do now? And guys get very cynical about it. It's very hard. One thing the NFL does that new coaches have to always understand is that the locker room is usually turning over 30, 40% every year. And so unless you got some guys in there who really are leaders, who've been around, who are able to set the culture, you're always going to be prone to having people just tune you out and just know that, okay, a couple of years, like the Dan Campbell reference I made, a couple of years, you're probably going to be gone. So if you can't get it done, you can't win us over now. That stuff doesn't play. That stuff doesn't get you going. I look at the Ravens and the Chiefs as well. I look at how they are with their players and how they can build things and the personalities they allow. Like I look at Marcus Peters at the Ravens now, and I know he's gone through a couple other teams. I mean, gone to the Chiefs and then the Rams before coming here. You'd be stunned to see what he's like now. I mean, this guy's like getting up on the podium and going to press conferences, and he's out there taking guys to dinner, or the DBs to dinner on Friday nights, and he's a leader on this team. But that's also because they let him be himself. That's the kind of stuff that players respond to and see, not, again, like who's winning and losing or who's having their successes or failures broadcast over a loudspeaker.
Who's pounding the most venti espresso shots and all that. That sounds Gunther-ish to me. Honestly, like every time I hear Danny Campbell talk right now, I'm like, that's Gunther Cunningham. And we all loved Gunther, and he was a great quote. But man, everybody got started rolling their eyes real quick every time Gunther would talk about how hard he was working. And there was nobody in the office more hours than him and all that stuff. Like nobody cares, man. Like they care what your game plan is. They care if you're going to help them win. And that brought up another guy, this whole situation in New York with Joe Judge last year. We were hearing a lot of those stories, and it doesn't sound like the Giants camp is off to some hunky-dory start either. What do you think of that whole situation?
Yeah, the big brawl that had a couple days ago, and everybody's going after each other. And Daniel Jones on the bottom of the pile. Yeah, that's not a good look. And look, I understand how that can play sometimes, and what sometimes coaches feel like, the guys are getting after each other and trying to really ramp things up. But you don't see that kind of stuff happening with good teams. And you don't see it. When's the last time you saw a fight in the Chiefs camp? When's the last time? I know the Ravens were getting into it a little bit, but the guys were pushing and shoving, but they weren't like full-on battle. Like, here comes the O-line, here comes the defensive line. It's just you see that kind of stuff on teams that are mediocre or just crappy. And so, yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, there's a lot. I've heard some of that enthusiasm about and optimism about the Giants, and how scrappy they're going to be, and Daniel Jones is going to pick the corner, and Saquon coming back, and all these weapons they've added. But you still got to go do it. I watched the Redskins. I keep calling them the Redskins. I watched Washington out here, and they're good. Dallas is going to be better. There are teams out there that are just, all this bluster and stuff that you hear from coaches sometimes, like you said with Gunther, it doesn't play unless you're actually winning games. And so I look at the football team. That team was horrible the first half of last year. They found a way to win some games and win that division with a 7-9 record. That's going to help them moving forward because they've been through the grind. They've been through the battle, and they found a way to succeed. Like, when you're not doing that, everything you talk about as far as toughness just falls on deaf ears.
We're visiting with Jeff Chadiha, and you referenced the Cowboys being a little bit better. They're involved in the Hall of Fame game tonight, and by the way, starting tonight, there's football every Thursday all the way through the year, basically the rest of the year. So life is good right now. We got football back, but only 3 preseason games for every team now. Jeff, do you think that's going to change? How much do you think that's going to change? Like a game like this, where it used to be, we're used to the kind of the cadence of the 4-game preseason, where the first game, you maybe get 1 series out of the starters, and then the third game was the mimic of the regular season game, and then the fourth game, none of the starters played. What do you think it's going to look like now with this 3-game preseason?
Well, I guess I didn't think about it until you mentioned it, but don't the Steelers and the Cowboys play 4 now? Because when there was 4, you played 5, you played in the Hall of Fame game.
Oh, is that right? Yeah, I guess I didn't think about it that way. I'm going to look at their preseason schedule here real quick because I don't know that.
So Steelers Steelers minus 1.5. What do you think?
You're right. The Steelers do have 4 games, and the Cowboys do as well. So yeah, and Jake wants to know. But he wants. We got the degenerate that might want to know the odds on this game.
Is that right? Yeah, I don't know what they're going to be, but I imagine that to your point, your first question, I think you're going to see more teams trying to get as many young players on the field as they can because they have to evaluate these guys. Right? That 4th preseason game is when a lot of guys are able to figure out. Well, coaches are able to figure out who's going to make the team. Right? Who are not the stars, but who are these borderline guys? So you have to get some of these younger players in early. And so I would imagine you probably see. That 3rd preseason game, which is usually the walkthrough, might be more of a, starters playing maybe a quarter, maybe a quarter and a half. Then here come the guys that nobody really knows because you have to evaluate those guys some way. There's not enough time to do it, especially even with what's been happening in some places with COVID and guys not showing up for off-season workouts. It's just you don't have the time to evaluate those guys.
Going to look at a lot of young players in preseason. I'm sure the veterans won't mind that too much either. Save the hits for the 17-game schedule. Jeff,
exactly.
What's next for you, man?
I'm going to come home tonight. I've been gone for about 6 days now, or I've been on the road 6 of the last 7 days. So I'm ready to come home, and I'll be home until next Tuesday. And I'm going to go over to the Broncos and Vikings. We're going to do some joint practices, so it's actually a good place to go because the Vikings, I see their quarterbacks coming back today, and I want to see how Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater look against live action against a different team. So, and that Broncos defense, I want to see what they got going because I keep hearing all the hype about that.
Well, they certainly did not draft a quarterback. They went defense in the draft, the Broncos. Yeah. So you maybe can let us know how that's going to pan out. Well, hey, man, I guess you're not going to be rocking a mustache when you get back so that you can sleep in bed tonight and all that stuff. So have a safe trip home, and we'll talk to you again next week.
All right, man. Take care.
All right, that is Jeff Chadiha, who breaks down the NFL better than anybody right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. A couple things I want to run by you. Number one, I'd like to cordially invite you to come down to the Big Steps Toward Cancer Prevention 10K, 5K, Family Fun Run / Walk and Kids Dash at the KU Edwards campus on Sunday, August 15th. You can sign up at biggsteps.org as we raise money to fight cancer and to help children who have lost a parent to cancer through Camp Kesem. It's a great fun morning. There's going to be free Kona ice for the kids. Chris Cake's Pancakes for purchase, other fun activities, and the race itself. The Kids Dash is always a big hit. Hope to see you out there. And our presenting sponsor is One Request, and you can check out their help if you're shopping for a car at onerequest.com. Certainly hope that you can join us. This is the 9th year we've been doing this since my buddy Sean died of cancer 9 years ago. It's incredible to think that. We've done a lot of great work and really appreciate all your support over the years. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk some baseball with J.J. Piccolo right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB.